One of the communities interested in developing coastal communities through the blue economy is Carbonethics, and let's talk more about their programs with Carbonethics Chief Impact Officer Jessica Novia. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us here on Sea Today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so first of all, how long does Carbonethics involve in local communities in its blue economy program?
How long? It's been 5 years.
5 years. And how does it started that you guys involved in blue economy, especially with the what you call it, communities, local communities?
Yeah, we know that local communities is integral. They are we know that they can actually become the biggest threat or the biggest hero for conservation. That's why since the beginning, when we know that we want to go on Blue Economy program, we right away know that we have to work with local communities.
I like how you say it. It can be the biggest threat and then the biggest heroes on the other side. Now, how do these programs that balance environmental conservation with the economic benefit itself?
Yeah, we're lucky that by design, blue carbon projects give both economic benefit and also environmental benefit actually. So blue carbon projects do not only absorb carbon but also supporting community livelihoods such as fisheries, shellfish harvesting, ecotourism, creative economy, and many more. So the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization estimates that 55% of Indonesia's total fish catch, so it's more than half, right? Actually relies on mangrove, which is one of the blue carbon ecosystem. And our World Bank also estimates that per median of hectares of mangrove-related ecotourism generates around $500 per year. So those are the economic benefit from grown or mature mangroves, right? How about the little ones, the seedlings of mangroves? So Carbonethics provide incomes for every seedling that the local community plants, and also additional income for the monitoring as well. So basically, ultimately, we want to create a sustainable model where conservation is not seen as a burden but as a pathway to improve the local livelihoods. And then we create a model where the people and planet thrive together.
Nice. You mentioned about you giving, what do you call it, a salary for the local communities who plant the seedling. Can you give like a specific example so we have a better idea, like which area and like what do you guys do over there and like how do you help? Because you mentioned earlier the UN and the World Bank mentioned saying that it helps for them to harvest the ecosystem. So how does it actually work? Can you give
okay. So for instance, in the FAO data, right? Okay. They're talking about the fisheries valued at 55% of fisheries in Indonesia. The total catch relies on mangrove. It's actually because mangrove is actually a critical ecosystem to provide nurseries for fish. Okay. So when so mangroves has a lot of roots,
right?
And if anyone Google mangrove roots, it's actually quite interesting. So they provide like a home where small fishes can stay there. Okay. So then the island that have grown mangroves actually have more fish because there are more kind of babies that then survive, become juvenile, and then become mature.
Now, do you have an example of an area where you guys already developed this? Where can we see some of it?
Our most mature site is in Bintan, Sumatra.
Okay.
So
which part of Bintan? Like we're talking about the northern part, like closer to Singapore?
Very good question. Nope. The northern side closer to Singapore is well developed, right? Okay. The southern part is in contrary.
Okay.
Actually, some of our local community partner is also under poverty line.
Okay.
So then we create blue carbon projects there, and then we provide, source for their income as well. So in Bintan, we have around 8 hectares of mangrove sites. We are collaborating with the local government. We created, it's called rumah rendah carbon or low carbon house, where it serves as a hub for local community to increase their ownership and resilience towards climate, including through mangrove conservation. As I mentioned, we provide income for communities that plant and monitor the mangroves. We also have trainings for them to create mangrove soap, coffee if you like coffee, mangrove tea if you're a tea person. Batik, actually, the batik was sent to COP, one of the biggest climate conference, to Dubai, to some countries as well. So yeah, we're trying to make, how do you call it? We provide training so that the communities can then develop an economic source from the ecosystem.
It's interesting that you mentioned Bintan. I just remember they have this traditional food which is harvested from the ocean. Gonggong,
Gonggong?
something like that.
Gonggong lives in seagrass, which is one of the blue carbon ecosystem as well.
Interesting. Can you explain about that? How does the blue economy how does that work?
Yeah, so it's actually also what was one of the economic benefit, right? So when the ecosystem thrive, for a mangrove, it's fish, crabs, shrimp, and all that, and many more. I mean, and seagrass, they have lots of. Seagrass is actually an ecosystem engineer. So not just gonggong. Gonggong is in Bintan, but if you know dugong, it's also quite endangered.
Okay.
It's in English, it's called sea cow. They also feed on seagrass. Dolphins also likes to be in seagrass. So when the ecosystem thrive, the biodiversity thrive, and then the local community can actually harvest there, or ecotourism, for instance. Yes. It's also one of the economic source of income, right?
I'll be honest, it's one of the interesting things to look at, like when you actually drive through the coastline and just look at the gonggong plantation, not plantation, or like where they harvest the whole thing. Now, what are the untapped opportunities in Indonesia blue economies that business should be exploring more?
We're looking into sustainable aquaculture, for instance. There's also regenerative tourism, so for sustainable aquaculture. For instance, in the past, in Lampung, in also East Java, the local communities harvest a lot of shrimp. They even export it. But now the environmental carrying capacity already reduced, so they even abandoned the shrimp pond. So what is actually the opportunity? The opportunity is sustainable aquaculture, because when the aquaculture farming is done sustainably, both the business and environment can sustain together, can thrive. And also regenerative tourism, where we combine tourism with conservation. For instance, Carbonethics has a company called A Bumi Journey, where we invite companies to go to our conservation sites. We educate about environmental and also invite people to plant mangrove together, for instance, or rehabilitate coral together. So then it's also a business opportunity, while also we protect natural resources in the long run.
Interesting. Now, do you think there are opportunities for companies in sectors such as renewable energy, like offshore wind, tidal energy within the blue economy?
Yes. For offshore wind, it's actually predicted that by 2030 we can generate 18 gigawatt. The problem is it's very expensive. So per kilowatt hour, it costs $16. Compared to $2 only per kilowatt hour from coal, for instance. Or tidal wave. Indonesia has one of the longest coastline at 81,000 kilometers, but there are only a few specific sites that are good for tidal wave, because there has to be a proper assessment. For tidal wave, we have to manipulate the wave direction that might confuse, let's say, whale migration.
Okay.
Or the device operation can create underwater noise or risk for animal entanglement. So yeah, there are some challenges. There are opportunities, but also some challenges.
Challenges that need to be taken care of before we actually push forward with this new technology. I mean, you mentioned earlier about like prices wise. I mean, with technology, we've seen over and over again, it's going to get cheaper and cheaper, and hopefully it's going to replace whatever.
Hopefully. Indeed, it needs investment.
Right. So what are Carbonethics' goals for expanding its impact on blue economy over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, by 2030, we aim to have 8 hectares of land under management, absorbing 160 million tons of carbon, while of course supporting local community and thriving biodiversity. We already partner with a company that has 30 years of experience in carbon projects that we hope can elevate our technical skills and also help us expand to Asia.
Okay, so one of the things that you mentioned earlier is about how the local community can become a threat to the environment itself. Can you give us an example and then what has been done to tackle some of those problems?
Yeah. So for instance, take my hometown.
Okay.
I come from a coastal town called Pekalongan. Do you know about Pekalongan? Yeah. So some people come for culinary or buy batik, right? Pekalongan is predicted to be 90% submerged by 2035. It's 90% submerged, so I cannot access my hometown anymore. My house is already...
I'm sorry, currently it's not
we cannot access yet.
Wow, okay.
And it's predicted to be 90% submerged, right? So it's a real problem of climate change that caused sea level rise. But in Pekalongan, it's the same with Jakarta. There's also a problem of land subsidence because we use too much of the groundwater. Okay. So one of the things actually is because the mangrove in Pekalongan was chopped by local communities to create shrimp pond. So it's actually quite popular that some countries ban shrimp from Indonesia because the way we do farming is really unsustainable. We cut lots of mangrove. The deforestation of mangrove in Indonesia is one of the fastest in the world.
All right.
So yeah, it's because the local community doesn't know. They think without mangrove they can still, grow things, but actually it's not sustainable. And only if they keep the ecosystem there, then the environmental carrying capacity will still sustain, and then the economic activities that they do will sustain in the long run.
All right, Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your program with Seed Today. I hope we're going to see more of your project in the upcoming years, especially on the blue economy.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. That was our conversation on blue economy for today's Business Talk. You can stay connected with us on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Our handle is Seed Today News. We're available online at seedtodaynews.com. Stay connected.